find out what it is that makes you feel good and go with it and run with it. And if you do that every day, you'll never work a day in your life.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Paul Tully with the FY Podcast. I'm here with Jocko. He just got into town. He is the human jukebox. That's what he's known as. He's a phenomenal musician, so we're going to talk a little bit about his journey. And Jocko, you just got in from Arkansas.
Yeah, well, actually, I got in yesterday, but
Got in yesterday.
got to have dinner with everyone last night, so I'm happy to be here.
Nice, man. Well, welcome to the West Coast. You come out often, or?
This is actually my 5th trip out here this year.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
for
so
different events that I've played for. Yeah, absolutely.
that's great. That's good. So you're from Arkansas?
Yes, grew up in Arkansas. I still live in a town about 20 minutes from where I grew up. So, I mean, it's very close to the same area where I grew up. Yeah. But I travel quite often, so I'm not there as much as I'd like to be, obviously. But I'm blessed to be able to travel and play music for a living. So
That's fantastic. When did you get introduced to music? This something you've been doing your
all
whole
my
life?
life. My dad still plays. He's basically all he plays is his church now. But I grew up with him playing in clubs and festivals and things like that. And luckily, I got to go to the festivals, and some of the local things he would play, and just fell in love with it from day one. I mean, I've been singing all my life. Started playing guitar at 14. Started playing piano a little bit before then.
Wow.
And it's been in my family. I got my daughters play. My brother plays. My nephew has a band. I mean, it's a family.
It's awesome.
thing, yeah.
Tell me, what is it about music that just lights you up?
I think it's you talked about anyone. Very few people dislike music. I mean, it kind of brings everyone together. It can bring you into a happy mood. It can put you into your feels a little bit. It's emotional, and no matter what genre it is, if whatever you're into, it can get you in the mode you want to be in. So it's a universal language, really, in a way. I just in the Uber ride over here, the guy was playing piano, soft jazz, and I thought, man, this is pretty cool. I was just sitting back listening to that, even though I don't play that very often. It's something that can really get you in the right mode, frame of mind,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like music, it's that art form. I mean, a lot of art forms we see, I mean, most of them are eternal. They last forever. But music, I feel, will always be, film is great. Theater's great.
Absolutely.
Novel, reading novels, but there's so many different art forms. But music, I agree, it's like the one thing that everybody, whether you're at the gym, whether you're on a date, no matter what, music is there.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, on a date, if you want to play a love song for whatever situation, but if you're in the gym, you want to have something a little bit pumped up, and so it can give you whatever situation it can fit into it. So yeah, and that's what I love. The part I do, is entertaining. And one thing I decided many years ago is to make sure that I play songs that people want to hear. In other words, my favorite thing is the nostalgia of it. Being able to go back to an earlier time when you were happier, maybe in your teenage years or younger years. There's nothing like someone hearing something on the radio and say, that takes me back to 7th grade. Yeah.
It's so crazy too. Like, I was listening to last night. I was trying to go to sleep, and I was like had a little insomnia, so I put like YouTube, and I was playing. It was like 80s, like an 80s play. And it was like Cyndi Lauper came on, and it was specifically True Colors. And I see man, it took me back to like my childhood instantly. I was thinking of like my mom because it would be playing. Like, it's amazing how it could take you to a specific moment.
And that's why I don't try to whenever I'm learning. I do mostly covers. I have some original stuff, but for the most part, I do covers. And what I try to do is not. Some people really want to dwell on, I don't want to play that because it's been played out. Well, I want to play what people want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to play what someone will make them happy. So a lot of times I take requests, so that and I've had people come up and say, I haven't heard that song in so long. That was my son passed away, and that was his favorite song, and I didn't even know that. I just happened to play it.
Yeah.
And it's moments like that that really gives it, a little bit more body to what you do. And you just sit there and let them tell their story.
Yeah.
And hopefully you ease a little bit of pain that they may be having going on.
Man, I love that. I love to hear that. Just that the reasoning, your why behind it. It's not just like, it's not to make money. It's not to. I mean, if all that happened, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely, you like to bring some joy to people's lives.
Absolutely.
Or bring them back to a time that mattered to them, and that's beautiful.
That's more of what I do now. I do it for a living. Don't get me wrong, but but the more rewarding thing is when you have those stories. And obviously, I got into it just for the love of it. Just the interest of it, and I never want to lose that. Whether I'm doing it for a living or not, I will always play music.
Yeah.
Whether it's just getting together with my family or whatever, I will always have a joy for it, and I will always have an interest in it. And I've just been fortunate enough to find a lane to where I can do it as my living. So,
that's huge. So do you do like lots of events? Do you like do weddings, everything?
I do everything. So I do several. I probably do, I don't know, 5 to 6 weddings a year.
Nice.
I have a band that I play in also, and then here in the last few years, I've started traveling a lot more, doing more events, more corporate events. I play a lot of senior golf tournaments.
Okay. Nice.
That's actually how I met Jeff here at National Corps. Years ago, we met through a mutual friend, John Daly, golfer. John Daly.
Yep.
And John is from my hometown, and so he kind of got into once he got into the senior tour, the Tour Champions. He started suggesting me for some of the events that they have out there. So I do about 6 or 7 senior tour events, and then rest of it I fill in with just
gigs at home,
or just whatever.
Yeah. That leads into meeting Jeff. I think the first time I actually seen you 2 years ago in Park City, Utah. Mm-hmm. You were playing an event. I had come up from LA too, and you were awesome. So Jeff Burham, amazing person.
Absolutely.
The reason everything's existing. So what's your relationship like with him? So you meet him doing the golfing and
so the way we met was I was actually in Dallas for an event as the Dallas Cowboys Golf Club. John Daly was having a charity event there at the Dallas Cowboys Golf Club, and it happened to be Jeff was down there for a soccer tournament with his son. Seth, and they had come over and hung out with us for a little bit at the event, and then he decided maybe I should come over to the hotel where they were staying at and perform for all the coaches and the dads and stuff like that. So we kind of had a after hours little event and stayed up pretty late just hanging out I was on the tailgate of my pickup truck, which sounds like a country song, I know, and we hit it off, and then I started making trips out here for the golf tournaments and stuff, and Jeff and I hit it off years ago and became good friends and still are to this day.
Yeah, he's incredible. Same, since I met him, it's just he really believes in people. He's a great example of like spotting potential in people and then helping them to go do the work, but giving us a lane to make the most out of what we can. And he's super supportive, just a awesome human being, man. So it's great. And it's great through him, we get to meet. So you're you're out here doing the shows. What other, is it just full-time musician though? Like
Absolutely.
Even at home, full-time. So you got the band and solo stuff.
Yeah. So typically, during the week I'll do solo events, whether it's, local restaurants, that type of deal, and then, on the weekends, my band will play clubs, events, festivals, casinos, that kind of thing. Just typical stuff that people do for gigging, you
Yeah.
know. And then, but yeah, I've started most of my travel out of the state. Almost all of it is solo stuff. I come out. It's easier for me to travel by myself than to bring a whole band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of the things I play don't really require a whole band. It just
And it's
needs.
more economical too
Yeah.
than you. Now,
Yeah.
what about recording? Any plans on that, or have you already?
I've recorded some, and I've never been big on recording. I've never really tried to market myself as trying to get a record deal or anything like that. But nowadays, with being able to stream and all that,
Yeah.
I decided a few years ago to put some music out, just so that when someone asks, I do have some things out there.
Nice.
So I've got 3 songs that you can find on iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that, and then I've got several videos you can watch on different platforms.
YouTubes and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's what makes the modern day so awesome. It makes it accessible, right? I mean, I'm a filmmaker myself, so but it's same. It's like, we're able to do things now that you couldn't do 20, 30 years ago.
It's amazing, and even with the equipment that you have. I mean, if I wanted to, and I had the time, it's easier for me to go into a studio and have someone else work all the buttons and things like that. But you can set up a pretty nice setup in your home
Yeah.
as a recording studio if you want to, and technology has just gotten crazy with all that.
Yeah, but like you said, I guess it's cool to have some stuff out there, but it's also it's nice to be out gigging and doing it
Yeah.
live and interacting and
And I do gig probably more than most. I mean, I do on average about 250 shows a year.
wow,
So
wow,
it's you don't bring up much time to do any recording. Really. I mean, you have to set aside time to do it.
yeah. Now, how do you are you married? Do you have a family?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, 28 years.
28 years.
28
Wow.
years. Yeah.
That's like unheard of nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. And two girls, 2 daughters, 26 and 20.
Congrats.
Yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
How do you balance that? That must be hard with the travel.
It's had its ups and downs. More ups than there are downs, obviously, but
Yeah.
to stay together 28 years. My girls grew up with it. I didn't start playing full time until 15 years ago,
Okay.
so they'd always been around it, but I always had a full time job, and that's kind of the way my dad did things. He always just played music on the side, weekend warrior type deal, and that just allowed our family to have a little bit extra, just extra income. But then I was working full time at a job that it was a really good job. I had it for quite a while, and there was going to be some changes made, and I started looking at things, and I thought, I think I can do this music thing. I really think I can. I mean, I'd already had it set up anyway. All I had to do was just make a few phone calls and get it done, and it hadn't stopped since September of 2009. Man,
Nice,
I've been at it.
That's awesome. For the people watching and listening out there, let's talk about that. When you make that decision, you have a good job, you got the benefits, everything's, but to make the decision to go full time into something you actually love, what was the thought process? Was it I don't want to spend my life doing this?
It was scary. No, it was to the point where I'll give you the example of what the final straw was. I had a call from a pretty well known. I mean, this goes old school country guys that some may not remember, but a guy by the name of Johnny Lee. Now, Johnny Lee's biggest thing was he had several songs on the Urban Cowboy soundtrack. Met him several years ago through John Daly, and he had my band set up to play at the National Finals Rodeo in Vegas for 10 days straight at Mickey Gilley's club out there.
Nice.
And my job, even though I had the vacation days, wouldn't allow me to take 10 days. It would only allow me to do 7 days. And I'd had a couple of opportunities like that I'd had to turn down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know that I want to regret this later on in life and say, hey, you had this opportunity to do this and you didn't take it.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, it's time to start working towards making it happen. And that was about a year before I finally did it. And once I kind of got it established, I was like, all right, let's make it happen. I think I got it figured out. And now it was scary, and I took every gig I could get whenever I started. But it's the best decision. I mean, yeah, 15 years, and I'm still doing it, and it's every year's gotten better.
Yeah, and they say if you're doing what you love, you don't spend a day of your life working.
That's
right.
right.
I mean,
That's right.
That's what you love doing. So you did do the Vegas gig though.
No, I didn't get to do it.
So you waited a year.
I waited a year, and
that.
I skipped it. I had to turn it down, because I said, so I thought I'm never turning anything like this down again.
Got it. So okay. Oh no, that's even a cooler story though. So it's like you had a couple opportunities, then you had this big one, and you're like you had to pass, and you're like I'm never gonna.
Right.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
And that's what I try to do now. I used to. I'd be honest with you. Just like Jeff suggested me come in and do this podcast and do some things here. A lot of times in the past, way before then, I probably would have just kind of blew it off. Thought it, it's probably not for me kind of thing. And now I'm trying to embrace a lot more. I'm trying to say, all right, it wouldn't hurt for you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and do some more.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. That's a great message, and really important to that message for the listeners is, what's great about what you just said is sometimes I feel like we get opportunities. We always think this could be the last time we get this opportunity, and sometimes we make irrational decisions and get ourselves into worse positions. But what you did, you know what? I got to pass on this. I have a family to feed. Right. I still got this, even though the storybook movie thing would have been you left your job and went and did that and got discovered in Vegas. And it's like, but you were smart enough to go, wait a minute, I got to pass on this. But I'm never going to pass again. So now I got to get my life. Right. And that's important for it.
Well, that comes from my upbringing. My dad was never one to take a lot of chance because he had family to feed. Like you said, he had a family to feed. Felt like he had responsibility as a father, as a husband. And so that was instilled in me. And even me doing what I did was probably a lot more out of his comfort zone, way more out of what. But I had to do adventure with a little security. I had to have a little bit of security. And so I made sure everything was established before I jumped out there on it. But now it was still scary.
No, smart move. I seen this documentary one time. So as an actor, we live in this fairy tale that like everything's romanticized, right? Like you hear these stories like so and so came out here with nothing but a jacket and made it to Hollywood, and today, he's Johnny Depp or whatever. Right. I was at a film festival for a film I had in a film festival, and I seen this documentary. It was great. It was these two brothers. They decided to ride bicycles. It was called Nomad, and they wanted to ride bicycles from one coast to the other. So they went from like L.A. to New York and all through Middle America just on bicycles. And they documented the whole thing. One scene, they're eating roadkill, and I'm like, this is so absurd. Like, they're like just meeting people in these like small, like railroad, unhoused encampments and just showing how like they met these unhoused people and they just kind of hung with them and they made a little community for the night. They let them spend, and it was really cool. But they're at this festival, so I go up to them at this after party, and I'm like, "Hey man, I really loved your film," and they're like, "Thank you, man, thank you." And I said, "I gotta ask you a question, man. Between us, you rode across country with nothing. No money, no nothing, like in this film." And the guy goes, "Oh, no, dude, I had my American Express card in my sock the whole time." I go, "All right, you didn't just ride." Like,
you have some kind of security, yes.
But they really did ride, and all that was actual. But he's like, "Dude, I had a credit card just in case." Right. It was like, okay. So my point to that is like, we romanticize the idea that like you just got to go all in with no plan B. Not a smart move. And if you do that and you're successful, great for you. But for young people out there listening or anybody that wants to pursue whatever they want to go pursue and not maybe their day job they're at, but have a plan.
Yeah. I
And
would never
a
discourage
little,
someone from chasing their dream by
of
any
course,
means.
of course.
But you still have to make wise decisions along the way.
Yeah.
Nashville tends to be the thing, especially in Arkansas. If you're a country music fan, you go to Nashville, and even more so now, Nashville is more than just country music anymore.
It's huge now. A couple of my friends moved out there.
Yeah, so a lot of guys go out there and they expect to hit it big because in their area they may be the best there is.
Right.
But when you get to Nashville, there's a lot of best.
Oh yeah.
And songwriters and I've witnessed several I thought were better than what you hear on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
but for whatever reason, it's just not happening. There's way more to it.
Yeah.
And I have people all the time asking me, well, man, why don't you go on The Voice? Why don't you go do this, do that? And I'm like, man, it's really not. That's not my vision. That's not what I'm looking. They can't understand it because they think everyone who's in music is supposed to try to go to a certain goal. Yeah.
Right.
And my goal was always to be able to play music and do it for my living and allow me the freedom to be my own boss at the same time and just be able to spend time with my family and call that shot on my own.
Absolutely.
And unless you get up to a huge, huge level, you're not going to have that freedom because you're going to have someone else calling the shots for you.
Yeah.
Because if you sign a record deal, that record company is going to have you working, or a management company is going to have you working because their investment's they're going to have to see a return in it. So they're going to have you out there doing it. And I've decided I found my own lane, and I get to do it, and it works for me. I'm not saying it's what everyone should do, but it works for me.
Yeah, I think you're doing the dream. Listen, I always say as an act, like even in my little acting career, when I first started pursuing it, I did want to be famous. Like I did. I was like, some of my friends like, nah, I just want to work. I was like, nah, man, I want to be rich and famous. That didn't happen. Yeah. Then over time, learning the craft and I started to learn that I enjoy crafting these characters and I do a lot of theater. I've done some TV and film, but I do a lot of theater. I'm doing a play right now, actually, currently in LA. And, I'm more where what you're saying. Like today I get to live a life. I was really unhappy punching into a clock, 9 to 5. I used to work in a warehouse, then in retail. I was like driving Lyft. Up till a couple years ago, I was like driving share riding and auditioning, and which is fine, bartending. And then I got to a point now where like everything I do is creative. I'm not famous, I'm not rich, but my bills are paid. And my day is like I wake up and it's like I'm doing creative stuff, podcasting, plays, indie films I'm making. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind one of my films picking up steam and I'm sitting at Warner Brothers. But if that doesn't happen, and this is the best it gets, it's pretty good.
That's right.
So I agree with you. I think that is the dream.
On my worst gig I've ever played, I thought, well, I worked for Sherwin-Williams, right? I managed a Sherwin-Williams store locally, and it was a great company to work for. And but every time I have my worst gig, I'm like, well, at least you're not mixing paint. At least you're not. And nothing wrong with that. It was a great job.
Nothing's wrong with, mixing paint, but you weren't happy.
That wasn't where I wanted to be.
Right.
And, because I was playing gigs on the weekend and getting treated like I was, I don't know, somebody, if you want to say that, and then come back and then have a customer come in that's disgruntled and have a few words with you, and you're like, is this really what I want to do? Yeah. And I handled those things. I was pretty decent at doing that. But after 6 years of doing that, and I'd been in retail sales before that too, and even worked in factories. I did it all, man.
Yeah,
I did. But I dropped out of college after a couple of years, and just thought that wasn't what I wanted to do. And at that time, I think I thought I was going to be somebody famous. I didn't know.
Of course. Just funny, right? You're Arkansas, grew up in New York and LA. I've been a bi-coastal kid my whole life, but it's like we're also so similar. This is what I think people need to do more in the world is conversate and find the similarity.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like our story is almost same. You said about your worst day is still your best day.
Yeah.
I was in the Navy for 4 years, and I'm gonna tell you, I joined 2001. Obviously, 9/11 happened, and we deployed a lot. We were at sea a lot. And I remember even on my worst days there, before the Navy, I was a knucklehead. So I was like not living a great life, getting in trouble and stuff. And I swear, I used to think exactly what you said. On my worst days when we were out to sea and I was like missing home, we're there for like 7 months out to sea. And I'm like, I would tell myself, I'd go, you know what, God? This is still better than where I could be.
That's right.
If I hadn't gotten sober, I joined the military sober. I did it like backwards. Most people join and become alcoholics in the Navy. I like got sober, and that was like a step up. My family was like so proud that I joined the military, and I'm like, I did it kind of backwards. All the other younger guys were like, they were just getting started drinking. But I remember thinking like, man, even on this worst day, when deployed, I was like, better than where I could be.
That's right.
And my dad, I was talking to him yesterday. He's in New York, and he's not feeling too well right now. I mean, he's okay, but he had a pneumonia, so he's been in bed, and but he's recuperating. But he was talking about, man, I feel restless in the house. He goes, I go, hey, at least you could turn the heater on and make something to eat. He goes, I've raised you right. Because that's how, whenever things get bad for me, I go, hey, do I have a roof over my head? Like, gratitude list. And
it's that glass half empty, half full, that type of mentality, man. I mean, you can look at things and just be down, 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 and it just keeps on. And if you keep doing that, it just keeps compounding on you. But, I mean, you got to try to look at things in the positive and say, man, look at what, every time I get on an airplane and have to travel somewhere to play a gig, I'm like, dude,
awesome.
I mean, this is not the worst thing you could ever do, by no means. And, so try to be positive about all that. Number one, I want to tell you, thank you so much for your service, man. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you for letting me serve.
I try to, every night I play a gig, I always do a shout out, a salute to anyone that's ever served our country. So thank you so much for that.
Appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. That's great. The podcast had me traveling like the first year, which was awesome. But I was traveling all around to interview people. We didn't have the studio yet. So, I had called Jeff and Jill and said, hey, why don't I just start like going on the road, man? We already had the budget. So we started going on the road. And every time I'd fly someplace, I'd be flying coach. I'd make sure the budget worked. And, I was flying a Spirit airline a lot. And every time I had a smile ear to ear. I brought my own water because they don't give you waters on Spirit. I'm like, shoot, hey, man, I'm getting flown to New York to go interview people.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Could be worse.
That's right.
So, man, I think it's like for anyone out there listening to, especially artists, but anybody, but especially artists, musicians, actors, anything, be kind to yourself. Like, that fame thing is nasty because, you really beat yourself up and compare yourself like, where I used to always do this thing. I would compare myself to where like Al Pacino was when he was 29.
Right.
And when I was 20, I'm like, man, he already did The Godfather. I'm like, and then you start comparing yourself to other, we look at famous people and it's like, that's such a horrendous way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Instead of just compare yourself to you. And just look at your own list of like how great it is that you get to go and do shows and do events like you said, and people are affected and people are coming up to you. Like I think that's what being an artist is anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the more rewarding things is the repeat business. Like when someone says, man, we enjoyed you. We're having you back. One of my favorite things I do every year is, and I picked this up over 3 years ago, is during the Masters. I play it's about 70 miles outside of Augusta, but they shuttle people back, and this company I work for, they bring in their vendors, and they kind of rotate them out as the week goes on, and they're treating them to golf, and they're treating them to a trip to the Masters and dinners and things like that. And I'm there for the whole week, and I get to sit there and meet all these different people from all over the country. All week long. That's one of the more rewarding ones I get to do, shows. And next year will be the 4th year I've been a part of it. So
That's
them
cool.
asking me back every year to be a part of it is very rewarding.
Super cool.
Where I'm not trying to be like I said, I'm not trying to be famous, but little things like that you look as a reward is you must have done something right if they want you to be back for it.
100%. And you mentioned earlier too, you touched on it. What's funny is I had a mentor telling me, I never call people mentors, but lately I've been learning to say people who are more seasoned than me that actually show an interest in giving me advice.
Right.
I try to, but I used to not like that word mentor. I always felt like it wasn't masculine. But so this writer that I've been working with, he's like been in the business a long time, but he was saying, we were talking about like the power of people wanting to work with you. I lost my train of thought. People wanting to work with you is what I was getting. Like you were just saying, people want you to come back. It's like that's like what says everything about you. Is like we can't control anything except how we put energy out. So you doing good work. I was going to touch on, are you doing social media and all that stuff? But you're already, just by your work ethic, bringing in the gigs,
right?
And the word of mouth, which is,
and a lot of times as musicians, they're not known for their work ethic. They're known for the party atmosphere, kind of being a little lazy, and it's true. I mean, I know several that can be labeled that way. I had to take it the fact that I'd have worked full time at a job, had to get up every day and go to work, and make sure my family is fed, roof over the head, and you have to keep that mentality if you want to do the way I do it. I guess is what I'm saying is if you want to try to
getting your own gigs,
and I do it all. I do all my own booking. I do all the contracts. I book my flights. I book my hotels. I do every bit of it.
Yeah.
And
so much work, but you're in control of it.
Yes, because it's not that I don't trust anyone. I'm just a little bit more. If I'm the one that established this, I want to be the one, taking care of all of it.
Yeah.
And that way I know when I get to somewhere what the details are at. I don't have to ask someone else.
Yeah.
Now it gets overwhelming sometimes, but that's part of the gig. Yes, that's part of what I don't think that I'm big enough to hire someone to do that for me anyways.
And why even, right, if you could handle it on your own, keep that money, keep that, keep it funneling. No, it's fantastic what you're doing, man.
Well, it also allows me to get in touch with the people I'm going to be playing for, have a little bit of something even before I get there, we're talking back and forth. I don't want to just show up and just, all right, I'm just a guy sitting here playing music. I want to know the people that I'm going to be performing for. Especially in the corporate world, where when I show up, whoever's in control of things, I want to know who I'm talking to. But then your regular gigs that I play at home, one of my favorite things is to be able to call someone out that's in the crowd over the microphone, make them feel special. Make them know that I appreciate them being there.
Yeah.
And social media helps with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would imagine, like, even when this pod comes out, and you have like footage, I would imagine doing some cool like sizzles and little clips of you doing stuff and interviews and stuff like that could all help it. It's kind of like the virtual resumes now, right?
You're right.
People, you're able to just send the link, that attaches to your social media. I don't know.
It's handy.
It's handy.
It is.
Most of the stuff we do now, I mean, I'm learning. Well, we got younger people on the team, thank goodness, that do the social media and stuff. Some of it I don't understand.
I don't either.
Like, I don't know how to.
My daughters are always trying to, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But
well, maybe they'll be the ones that take over that for you.
They've offered. Now, actually, that aspect, I would give that up to someone. I'd let someone else do that for sure.
Yeah, that might be a cool. How old are your daughters?
26 and 20.
Oh,
My 26-year-old is really. She'd be really sharp at it.
Get you out there on TikTok and stuff.
Yeah. I've got a few. I'm not as good at it as I should be, but I've got a few. But she's the one that at least got me started on it. Saying you need to do this, do that. But It
good.
helps. It helps just getting just people knowing who you are. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great. So you're out here. You're doing the gala tomorrow for the company.
I actually will not be performing for it.
Oh, okay.
But so Jeff likes for me to maybe play a little after party kind of while the guys are kind of hanging around the fire pit and smoking cigars and
Nice.
and do a lot of what we're doing right now. Kind of tell stories and just play some songs and I take requests. If somebody wants to hear a song, I'll play it for them. And it's more just kind of hanging out and enjoying our time together.
Are you a fan? I gotta ask. Wedding Singer. You ever see it? Adam
Oh yeah,
Sandler?
oh yeah.
Classic.
It's and I do a lot of
Do you ever
weddings,
do it?
but I don't fall into the cliche of the
Okay.
wedding singer, which there
don't
are
do-
people who do.
What's his name in that? Not Adam Sandler,
I
but
can't remember.
you know,
I haven't seen it in so long.
the other guy's fantastic. There's another movie, Old School. Remember Old School?
yeah.
There's like I don't know the band, but
Where they change all the words, they didn't
yeah,
hang
that
over,
guy
and
blew up over that.
Yeah.
Like he became. Me and my friends used to die laughing. He would just change the word.
And there's no telling what he charged to after he got all that recognition.
You never
too.
thought to do a couple of those?
No. I've actually had a couple people ask, but most weddings they try to be formal about things, and I tell them if they're going to be too formal, I said I'm probably not your guy. You've seen us either at another wedding or you've seen us at an event or something like that, and that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So I don't fall into the dress up in tuxedos and that kind of thing. You're going to get what we do, and if that don't fit, then we're probably not your best bet. But
Right.
and most of them understand that.
Yeah.
They get it. That's what they want you to do. They'll get all the formal stuff out of the way, and then when we start, it's the party.
Have a good time,
It's the
party.
Let's have a good time. Yeah.
What's your favorite event memory that you could think of? Was it like a birthday, a wedding, a retirement? What was the
Man,
best?
I've got to open shows for some pretty well known artists. It's hard to pinpoint exactly one. The first one that really blew my mind is this is a country artist. He's actually from Arkansas. His name is Tracy Lawrence, and they had him at a local festival where we're at, and we opened the show for him. And that week, he had a #1 hit with a song called "Find Out Who Your Friends Are," and there was over 10,000 people at this local festival.
Wow.
And that at that moment, that was the most people I'd ever played to.
Yeah, it's a big crowd.
And so that one kind of sticks. I'd opened some shows from other people, but nothing that big. Now, since then, I've done several things like that. I've got to do some shows with Hootie and Blowfish and Sister Hazel. One of my favorite things I got to be a part of is we did a thing for Folds of Honor down in Orlando at Disney at the House of Blues.
Oh, wow.
And it was something Daly had got me to be a part of. So instead of me just coming out and doing my own thing, we formed a band, and it was Mark Bryan from Hootie and the Blowfish. We had the Tim, a bass player from Driving and Crying. We had the two lead singers for Sister Hazel there.
Wow.
And they brought me in to play guitar and sing some songs too. And we did an hour-and-a-half show, unrehearsed.
Wow.
We were just emailing back and forth. All right, these are the songs. This is the part you're going to do.
Oh,
This is what we're going to do. And we get there, do sound check. Kind of went over some starts and stops, things like that. And when we got there, the place was absolutely packed.
Wow.
And it was a blowout show and just nonstop for an hour and 45 minutes probably. And we got some video footage of it too, and it was cool to be a part of that.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
It
A lot
was
of veterans probably in the house. and-
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. We raised a lot of money
Cool.
that night, and I've got to do several things like that over the years, but it's hard to pinpoint just that
So
one.
many good things, but
Yeah, some of the things like some of my idols, like the people I really looked up to who influenced me. Two of the biggest ones that anybody that knows me well knows it's Vince Gill and Steve Wariner, who are people know them as country artists, but if you're in the music industry, you know them as being amazing guitar players, and that's what I was first. I was a guitar player first before I ever started singing really much. And I got to open a show for Steve Warner, and I got to be on the golf course with Vince Gill last
Wow.
year. Yeah,
That's
hang out
cool.
with him and just talk to him a little bit. So yeah,
Isn't that an amazing feeling how like one day you're working at, was it a paint store?
Yeah.
A paint company. You're doing other jobs, retail, and you're just like, it's just a whisper of a thought, a dream of like, and then the synchronicity that years later you're on the golf course with one of your idols and you're opening. I mean, that's like, those are like it's like those are the breaths from God that are
It is.
like you're on the right track and you're right where you're supposed to be. Similar things have happened to me with actors where it's like, I've got to meet Pacino multiple times, and there's somebody I grew up with. Our family's huge Pacino fans. I'm watching his movies since a kid. Man, I got to direct Mickey Rourke in a movie I wrote and directed, and it was like the synchronicity, like that's when I know it's like there's no destination. Sometimes those are the reminders, I think, that wait, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be there. I'm in the realm and wherever I fit in that, whether I'm making indie movies, whether I'm making studio movies, whether I'm podcasting, I'm doing exactly what I'm doing, the work, and God handles the rest. And that's a great thing. That you have that you're doing what you're meant to do.
Yeah, and networking is a huge part of that.
Sure.
Do what you can with the people you meet, and I mean I have to give props to John Daly. I mean I know that he has a reputation for some people, whatever, but that man has, outside of my immediate family, John has been more supportive of me than anyone. He's seen something in me. He's actually one of the big reasons why I decided, all right. He kept pushing for me to do it full time, and I was like, okay, I'll do this. But now I get to travel around and a lot of these events. He's at those events, whether it's the golf tournaments or he has his foundation, the John Daly Heart of the Lion Foundation, that I go get to be a part of some of those events, raising money, and they do stuff for first responders and military, and Boys and Girls Club is a big thing for him, a huge thing for him, Boys and Girls Club. And so, he has really bumped it up for me as far as opening doors and things like that. And he likes to joke saying, if you don't make this amount of money over the next year, I'll just give it to you. And he's never had to give me a dime over that kind of thing. So he opened up a few doors, and what I did with that, whenever he opened them, it was up to me. But he's been a godsend for me when it comes to that.
I love that.
And a dear friend. Don't get me wrong. He's a very dear friend.
No, I love that. That's a great message. Well, listen. Before we close, Jocko, what I like to do is ask guests to look in that camera. That camera's on you there.
All right.
And everything you were just saying right now about John Daly and Jeff and how these people have, been, I don't know, mentors, associates that have helped give you a platform. Yeah. Let's give someone else a platform out there. What advice would you have for them? That's maybe they're working at a retail store and they got a little skill on a guitar and they're thinking, man,
I said it before. Don't be afraid to chase your dreams. Don't be afraid to step out there, but in a sensible way. Venture with a little security. Make sure you got something to back you up. Have a plan B, but don't be upset all the time because you feel like you're going nowhere. Find what it is that makes you happy. I just told my daughters that they're trying to figure out their way, and I said I'd rather you be happy than anything. So just find out what it is that makes you feel good and go with it and run with it. And if you do that every day, you'll never work a day in your life. For sure.
Man, Jocko, thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yo, it's a pleasure. I'm going to close this out here. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of FYI, Finding Your Inspiration. Sitting down with Jocko, I took many, many gems out of his conversation today. One thing that really hit me and I love is, sometimes you see what you want to jump into it, and you should chase it. definitely. And if you do jump in with no plan B, more power to you. That's great too. It's always good to just have a little bit of a plan, just a little cushion to give you that leeway to really pursue your dream, really execute a plan to get there. There's more than just chasing it. It's how do you accomplish it. So taking that from his message was great. Another thing he said, he had multiple opportunities that he couldn't take the jobs. Then this big one came. He couldn't take it. And that was the point where he told himself, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm never going to have an opportunity that I can't take. I think we could all take that in our lives, not just artists. Like I say all the time, I've been on this health journey. I take that with, that last time I binged food, which was, not that long back. I started this journey really hard. I'm a little while back, and I remember the last time I binged, and it was like, I never want to be this guy again. I never want to be the person overweight, not happy with myself, and eating myself to death. So I made a decision, and I don't ever want to go back to doing that. So I like that he found a moment and a crossroad, and then he made a decision. It's not going to happen again, and it never has. After that last opportunity, he set his life up to where he can now do what he loves, and that's what he's been doing for 15 years. So Jocko's a great source of inspiration for us. Glad to have you on the show. So to next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you on the next episode.
You should never stress about the problems you be facing. Everybody in the mud on the struggle trying to make it. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration. I'm finding inspiration, and once I get a hold of it, I'll never get complacent. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration.